Hi.
Hi, I'm Kaylee,
I'm Cassie.
and we both read The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath.
Okay.
You want to start?
Nope.
Okay, I will. So the plot of the story is about Esther Greenwood, a 19-year-old college student who finishes her junior year of college and goes on to New York to be a guest editor at a fashion magazine. There she meets one of the kind of the turning point characters for Esther named Doreen, a beautiful blonde woman who helps her realize that you don't have to have a regular relationship to
Have fun.
to have fun. She led a very ritzy life too.
She's very casual. She's a very casual character. I know that there are a couple scenes in the book where there's one scene where she goes and she is on her way to like a party, and then some guy stops them and they're just like, "Hey, do you want to like go get a drink with us?" And then they go get a drink with them, and then they go back to their apartment, and then Doreen is encouraging Esther
to get the booty.
Yes, to be all over this man that she doesn't know. And
to go, just to go after it.
Of course, Esther is uncomfortable and she leaves Doreen alone.
Yep.
And then they show up the next morning, and
kind of awkward.
Doreen is there.
Yeah.
And doesn't remember.
After being in New York, she then goes back to Boston, Massachusetts to stay with her mother because she lost her scholarship, which is very sad. But while going back there, she realized that it's all topsy-turvy in New York, and nothing there is even remotely similar to Boston. So
she is having issues adjusting, as she did when she entered New York. Now she's having issues adjusting
coming
back to her home life.
Yeah.
Because everything was so different.
And because of this, she then started to develop feelings of depression and tried to attempt suicide for the first time in her life.
She actually struggled with mental illness her whole life.
After her father died when she was 8 years old.
Yes.
To cancer, diabetes. Cancer.
Yes.
Okay. Later on in the book, Esther then goes she gets admitted into a sanatorium where a doctor by the name of Dr. Gordon issues her with improper shock therapy, which then causes her to not talk, think, see. She kind of loses her senses from all the shock that she's been administrated.
She becomes mad. She becomes completely mad.
Yeah. So, upon seeing this, Philomena Guinea, a very famed novelist, decides to help Esther out and put her into a private hospital where she is given insulin and properly distributed shock therapy to help her with her depression. When she gets out of it, though, she decides to be ambitious again, like her friend Doreen, and decides to lose her virginity to a man named Irwin, a math professor at a nearby college. But while losing her virginity, she noticed that she was bleeding
profusely.
Yeah. And was taken back to the emergency room at the hospital and was kept there for several weeks. While she was in there, her boyfriend Buddy came in and told her that he was cheating on her with another woman. So she decided to end that relationship. And while she was given the chance to just walk around and, kind of be back out in society, she really thought about how far she's come and kept thinking about the bell jar that hovered over her head, waiting for her to crack.
A little teeny tiny bit about the author. She was born in 1932 in Boston, Massachusetts. Sylvia Plath wrote this book about herself.
It's a semi-autobiographical novel.
Changed the incidents. She changed the characters. But all of this that Esther is going through, this is what Sylvia went through. Sylvia was very depressed. She fell into depression when she entered high school and college. She went to Smith College.
She graduated with a 4.0, which is fabulous.
Yes, but one of her first suicide attempts was the year before she graduated. She then moved to Cambridge, England, and then got married to Ted Hughes.
Yeah, and that very same year when she met him, they got married, and
eventually she released her first series of poems that
Colossus.
were published in both America and England.
Yeah.
She
partnered up with Robert Lowell for those poems too,
did.
Which is really cool.
Yes, and she had children. She had 2 children, Frida and
Nicholas, in 1960 and 1962.
Yes, only a year after that, Or the same, no.
No, it was only...
The same year that her youngest was born, her husband left her for another woman.
Yeah, and because he left her for another woman, her depression really set in, and she decided to write the book The Bell Jar, which is, you know, similar to her life. But after writing after the same year of the book being published, she committed suicide using her gas oven, which I'm kind of curious about how she did it.
I am not curious about how she did it.
I don't know. I like those things. It's weird.
All right. Themes. Okay, the first theme is expectations. In spending a summer in a fashion internship to pursue a successful career in journalism, she finds herself unlike the girls that she is doing the internship with. She doesn't dress like them, she doesn't speak like them. She finds herself indifferent, and she's alienated from the rest of her crowd. She's inferior to the girls that she is bunking with and having to make friends with.
Yeah, because they all live in this glamorous world of high fashion, and their rich parents, and, you know, they think, well, we can do anything we want. We don't have to be, you know, just all courtsy. We can just have a casual relationship and then be done.
They encourage Esther to be spontaneous and whimsical rather than how Esther actually feels, which is alone and afraid for her future.
Very timid about the world, too.
She's very envious of the friends that she meets.
But she doesn't have the confidence like they do.
These feelings and her increased vulnerability only intensify her mental illness that nobody's able to see besides her. She finds that there is no way to air her grievances and to let off steam a little bit, which is where the bell jar comes in.
The bell jar, I noticed, was also a very big symbol in the book, because the bell jar is actually, it's a casing that is used to cover objects and kind of keep things mummified, you could say.
Yes.
Kind of an example is like for Beauty and the Beast. The rose is inside a bell jar. So she feels that she's trapped by her own madness and being suffocated, and she can't, you know,
she doesn't feel alive. She feels like she
can't get out.
Emotionally, she's dead, but physically, she is still alive.
And so later on, when she then, you know, discovers that, hey, I don't have to be this sad person. I don't have to keep committing suicide. I can keep going. I can keep living. But all the while, she's still remembering that there's this thing hanging above her head, and it's waiting for her to crack again. So she's very mindful of the bell jar.
Yes. That brings me to the second theme, growth. Through all of Esther's pain and suffering, her personality never dies, and although she does try to raise herself both mentally and physically, she never really can. She does fall into a deep and sudden depression, and she is faced with a decision, her future or her sanity. These episodes of mental illness and suicide attempts peel a layer off of her each time they take place. With each experience, she becomes more and more emotionally raw, and her true self becomes more evident. After realizing that her body is determined to fight, she discovers that she has grown more as an individual from these experiences while gaining more strength, but still being cautious of her declining mental health.
How did you like the book?
I loved it. You
weren't as affected.
I was not as affected by it, but I did think that it was beautifully written.
I kind of was affected by it. Yeah. Just a little, not to a breaking point, but to where I really had to step back and kind of think about, do I still want to keep reading? Yes, I wanted to keep reading because it's beautifully written. I will read it again. I know that. But it was... What Esther went through really made me think, you know, our lives are so different. We all go through such different things. Nobody's ever the same.
Yes.
So our own experiences really shape who we really are.
Yes. Major symbols, will go by this really fast. The first one is the bell jar, which we just talked about, a casing to shelter items like scientific discoveries or other objects. The meaning behind it for Esther, she feels like there is no escape for her emotions. She has all this built up emotion from moving to New York and starting this internship. And
then moving back to Massachusetts, where everything is so different.
She feels as if nobody does understand what she's going through.
The beating heart is a number symbol that shows that Esther's will to live is very strong. And even after all the suicide attempts that she's had, her body recovers quickly and her heart keeps beating. I am. Showing that she can never quit. Even after everything that's thrown at her, she can
must
still
go on.
Yeah, she can still live.
The fig tree, Esther decides to read a story about a Jewish man cultivating a relationship with a nun, and they must meet near a fig tree to converse. Esther starts comparing her love life to theirs and wonders if she was making the right decision being with Buddy. Later on in the novel, the fig tree symbolizes the choices she makes in life. Okay.
I do think people should read this. It'd really help them get a sense of what a lot of people do go through with depression. But I feel that if you are a little emotionally unstable, I wouldn't recommend it. If you do read it, definitely like have someone nearby that you can talk to and kind of sit with, put the book down, and just kind of get back into normal life after reading it.
I did not find that I was that emotionally affected by the book, although I did think that it was very sad and disturbing. Let's go through these really fast. Major characters. Esther Greenwood, we already talked about her, a 19-year-old girl that attends college and attends an fashion internship to become a novelist and become a journalist. Her father died when she was 9 years old, leaving her and her brother to live with their mother. Her mother is very loving. That brings us to Mrs. Greenwood. She's very supportive of Esther and becomes worried.
Yeah, she starts to question Esther's life choices about going to New York because she's fearing that Esther will change gradually because of the experience.
Buddy Willard, not a very abstract character, not nearly as abstract as Esther.
Or Doreen, too.
Yes. He grew up in a wealthy family. He is athletic and sporty and handsome, and he's dating Esther. He graduated from Yale and is attending medical school right now. He is happy with Esther, but doesn't understand her dream of writing poetry. He doesn't understand her in general.
Yeah. Back then in the 1950s, nobody really understood that, women had dreams, but nobody really supported them because women back then were supposed to be wives. You had to have kids, you had to watch the house, you had to do